Righty, folks. Welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast. And dang it, well, it's been a while since dude, Sean, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going pretty good, dude. Summer and things are green down here in Anchorage and or up here, depending, I guess. And yeah, it's pretty exciting just to be wearing my t-shirt and going outside in shorts and I've been very much enjoying it and ready for summer. It's like I've been joking with my friends, like, dude, summer's here. Like next thing you know, it's just gonna be winter again, you know? But we're trying to enjoy these precious months that bring balance to the force, you know, with the long winters and the dark and the cold. This is nice to have these long days and I don't know, I've experienced these summers a few times, and even I think the lifelong Alaskans, it's just kind of surprising every year. You're like, wow, are you kidding me? Like the sun is up the whole day. It's crazy, you know, like you're just like always surprised by it, even though you know it's coming. And so yeah, it's been pretty neat, pretty exciting for just higher energy levels are all around.
What how far into the season are you? Are you halfway through, or where are things at in terms of your season?
What do you mean by my season?
Summer.
Like as far as like the cycle of the sun or like
Yeah. Yep.
tourism or fishing or
No,
okay.
no, 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 no. The cycle of the sun, like I know each day the solstice and all that, which I never fully understand. So yeah, just like where are you at with all of that?
Um, yeah, it is June 21st is the longest day of the year for the Northern Hemisphere. Even in Atlanta, that's the longest day of the year. And so every day after the winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year, December 21st, usually, every day gets longer all the way until you get to the June 21st. And then
Okay.
at that point, it switches and every day gets shorter until you get to December 21st again. And so that it switches back and forth like that. And then when you're like right in the middle of those two dates, that's when there's the biggest differences in like sunlight day to day. You'll have like, you know, in Anchorage, 5 minutes more sunlight from, you know, March 15th to 16th. Whereas, you know, these days we probably get a couple extra minutes, is at least how my understanding of it is. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny. Like you get to the summer solstice and it's kind of like still the like first quarter of the summer, even though it represents the like longest day of the year and that things are getting darker after that. But June 21st is like summer just kind of started. It's May 30th. And it's like, I mean, even if you go up to, you know, Denali, there's a bunch of snow still on the mountains. Like I was there a week or two
Yeah.
ago. It's like the lakes are still frozen. You know, I think they're probably mostly unfrozen by now, maybe, but maybe not, you know? So by June 21st, it's like that. Okay. Summer just started in the interior and in some,
Yep.
in places in Alaska and higher elevations. And then, but that the reality is once it's June 22nd, it's a little darker, you know, and by the end of July, you know, maybe early August down here. There's a little bit of darkness at midnight, 1 a.m., more so than there is right now. But yeah, that's a
Okay.
long-winded
So
answer.
you're just getting into it essentially.
Yeah, just kind of getting into it. We're only 3 weeks from the solstice, but we're still really summer's barely begun, and you're starting to see, you know, one of the big indications for me, summer is starting to see a lot of people showing up from out of town, people on vacation. Also, like a lot of local people that like just kind of hunker down in the winter, and you know you go and walk around various places throughout Anchorage and in Talkeetna. You know, been to you know Denali, going to some of the restaurants around there. You just see like a lot more people around, and people are just outside, excited to be outside, just because it's like easy to be outside for once. instead of just having to put on all the layers. And it's been a really nice month of weather as well. It hasn't been very rainy, a lot of sun, and really mild and enjoyable.
Nice. That's awesome, man. Sounds like a
Yeah.
good time. And
This episode is brought to you by sleddogtalk.com. It's a one-stop shop for all your sled dog community needs. They've got all events. They've got online discussion forums. If you're looking for a employee to that be a dog handler or help with sled dog tours, not just in Alaska, but anywhere on Earth. And they're going to be listed on this website. And if you're, somebody that's looking for that employee, or you're an employee looking for an employer, this is a good place to meet up and talk about, some job opportunities in the sled dog world. There's also a trail. One of the problems I ran into a lot when running dogs is just getting to know the trails. You kind of sometimes I ended up doing the same trail over and over just because I was confident and knew where it was and how to do it. And sometimes the dogs are like, dude, I don't want to go on this loop again. Can we go and do on an adventure? I'm like, let's just go on this. And then they obviously end up pulling me into oblivion either way. But, the dogs appreciate some diversity in their trails, and what better way to explore a new place in Alaska, a new place on your local trail system in Idaho, or if you're in Norway or New Zealand, or there's a, not just if you're sleds, you could be bike touring, and good bike touring trails, good ski touring trails. You can find that information here at their trail finder at the sleddogtalk.com website. They've got just a wiki page as well. You can learn your knowledge of the sled dog terminology and history, and it's all user generated. So the more people that get on the website, Brendan, the better it gets, right?
Right. So like an example, we put out our podcasts, we put it out on our socials and all of that, but then like I go into his website and I make a post in there as well, and then people can access it there. But like the wiki, all of it is user based. So like the wiki page, whatever they have in there, people have gone in and put in stuff about Balto or breeds of sled dogs, or who is Rick Swenson, or Dallas is in there. And I think it was also cool. Like I was looking over at the trail finder page, and so you can put in your trails, and they have there's 4 in Alaska, there's 2 in Europe, there's all different locations. Some of them are like quick little out and backs or little loops. Some of them are like 95 miles long. They put the Copper Basin in there, the 294 miles. So just kind of interesting to kind of like play around. And I would imagine like as people get back out running dogs more, you can go in and like load your routes and share those. And, I guess some people may not want to share their routes, but no, I just think that's super, super awesome website. Like great to have a resource like that. I think for me, one of the things that like, as I first got into, following mushing and, like when you were doing the races and now that we're doing this is, like I want to go and find the history of a musher, and I can go to that Iditarod website, and that Iditarod's going to have the history of that musher, but like anything else, you got to find so this website, as people continue to add to it, will only add things like that. And so yeah, we want to support our buddy Sean Williams. He put this together, and so yeah. This just going to talk about this in our episodes moving forward to kind of promote this website as he's promoting us on his website as well.
Yeah, man, this is really pretty cool to check out. I'm gonna be using it. I mean, right now, people often ask, "Oh, how do I get into the dogs? What's a good place to start?" Like, this is a good place to start. Whether it's to find a job or to ask some questions, and have some experienced people tell you it's this is there's been websites like this where you could find sled dog jobs, but this is like this is 2024 website. This is like very well organized, user friendly. So, um, tell your friends to, hey, if you got questions about dogs, you don't, there's jobs available in Finland and Sweden. I see right here, they're looking for someone to help with a small group of 16 dogs there. So yeah, this is a one-stop shop for all things sled dogs. And it's not just about Alaska. It can be anywhere on earth. So go to sleddogtalk.com to find out more.
I guess it's been a little while since we put out an episode. So, just it's that time of the year where, post Iditarod, my life gets busy, Sean gets busy, we get pulled in different directions. There's this like shift in things. And so, anyways, I know that we're gonna have these 2 episodes coming out. We've got this episode is for Pete Kaiser, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And then we've got another one with Severin Cathry. And then you're going to be doing the same thing you did last summer. You're going to be going out and taking advantage of the salmon run. So we'll have a little break over the summer, I guess, throughout the month of June. And then we'll get back going towards the back half of July. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I should be back by the end of July. So usually not back, but probably won't be back before like the 22nd, but maybe we'll see. Yeah, probably be a little quieter on our end in the summer. I think it's kind of a symbolic to what, the mushing scene in the summer is also a little bit quieter, but there's, of course, the exciting Iditarod sign-up day at the end of June. And, everybody, it's money-making season for people in the mushing world, whether it's through tourism or it's through going fishing or working your construction job. Everybody's, you gotta be ready to blow tens of thousands of dollars on your dogs in the winter. And so a lot of people don't have too much income in the winter and they focus on training and running dogs and then they spend 5+ months in the summer just grinding. And yeah, so it's good that I think it's good to take time to, go, if we cranking out an episode every week, it's nice to take a little break, for us and for anyone, it's a nice mental relief
keep it fresh,
yeah, for you guys listening and for people mushing, they're not getting out and running their dogs every day in July. So they might be taking them on hikes and walks and doing other kinds of stimulation.
Unless you're Jesse Holmes,
Yeah.
He's out there running his dogs every day. He's still got access to snow. Crazy.
Barely, yeah. He's like running on mud, it looks like.
Some of the videos earlier in the month, he had snow. Now he's got bare minimum on that, but still. So yeah, I think we're gonna keep things running, as we have, but just in the summer, I think mirroring the season is probably something that we can do. And then when we get back. When Sean gets back, we'll get to it. And we've already been talking to a couple different mushers and, so we'll start cranking them back out once you get back from your little fishing venture. Hopefully it's a profitable season for you this year. I know last year was a little bit frustrating, but you learned some things in your first season out there, right?
Yeah, certainly. I certainly did. I think last year was frustrating for a lot of people. I don't think it was that frustrating for me personally because I don't really have anything else to compare it to. So it was what it was. They didn't pay, I guess, a great price for the salmon we caught, but we caught a lot for, especially considering the boat I was on was run by a rookie skipper who's younger than me, and when I ask our friends that are doing the same thing for the last 8 or 10 years, they're like, "Dude, you guys caught that many fish? Great job!" So we did good, but we considered it to be a successful season. I didn't make enough money to go and, just go and pick my nose for the rest of the year. But it was really a positive experience, and it was certainly worth my time.
You just pick your nose for part of the year. That's all.
And I still, even if I'm working, I can still pick my nose.
Okay. I just want to make sure that was still an option.
Oh yeah.
So you and I were talking, and we should talk, I guess, a little bit about mushing. So we mentioned the Iditarod sign up at the end of June. So I'll be that Sean will be out on the boat during that time, but I'll be kind of paying attention to that. I guess since you've brought that up already, any thoughts on that in terms of names that you are interested to see, or are there names like I guess I'm curious whether or not is Dallas, has he acknowledged if he's going to be in next year's race? Is he going to kind of sit it out? Is it, is that like to be determined? Just anything along those lines about sign up.
Yeah, I mean, I know of a couple of rookies, like Sydney Ball, who's running, what's his guy? What's it? Werner Hall, God, what's his first name? Anyways, Sydney Ball running rookie race.
Walter Vern. Come on, man.
Vern Halter. There we go.
Vern Halter.
There we go. Sorry. I met him for the first time. He's like a complete legend, literally like, one of the GOATs. And I like just met him and just learned about him this year, so I'm not, I know that I'm like between you and me, the expert, but between, I'm not really the expert to just have heard of Vern Halter a couple of years ago. So, but yeah, he's got a group of dogs and does tours in the summer, and Sydney's been running some races and got qualified this year. You got Sam, I don't know what her last name is, but she's been working with Dallas and a few other mushers over the years, and she got qualified. She's probably running Iditarod next year. You got, I think Isaac Tiefert will be back in it. So there's just 3 rookies off the top of my head, and I'm sure that's just a small fraction of rookies that are going to be shining up. And I think, I think in some ways, like rookie signing up or just like more exciting, just to get like these, I'm excited to learn about who they are and what their story is. And oftentimes they kind of come out of the woodworks, and maybe they aren't particularly known by everybody. So it'll be kind of cool to see what names pop up. Dallas, I've heard, it's kind of a coin flip one way or another. He's got nothing to prove, but I think he really loves it. And he loves the challenge, the mental and physical challenge of things. And I could see him being in it, but also, he's got his 11 or 12-year-old daughter to, I'm sure he could find a really easy list of excuses to not run it, or lack of, reasons, let's say, not excuses to not run it. And we'll see. Time will tell. And, there's people we know we won't see on the list, some maybe last year's rookies, maybe you won't see some of those guys. You probably won't see Sevi. You probably won't see Ben Good. You probably won't see, maybe those Mitch Seavey. I don't know if Lara Kittleson will be in it this year necessarily. I'm just kind of speaking out of my but a little bit, but it's just maybe an educated guess, if you're running someone else's dogs, but then you got, people like Hunter Keefe that he's running Reddington dogs, and I'm betting he'll be in it again next year, so yeah, well, that's why they have sign up day, and you get to answer these questions. I always kind of make fun of the people that are like the ESPN analysts for like the NFL or NBA draft. Like, why not, like they're like spend like months trying to guess who's gonna land where, and I'm just like, what's the point of guessing? Like, why don't you just wait and see? And that's, but I guess, when you're betting on who's going to get drafted first or who's going to be, if you're gambling on something, I guess that's why they do it. But yeah, we'll just have to see what happens on signups. And then even then you got like 3-4 months until the last day to sign up, and even longer if you want to do like the last minute sign up. That's a little pricier. So we'll see what happens, but I think there's going to be lots of storylines.
You think there's going to be, if you were to speculate, how many signups do you think we get initially?
Oof, I don't know how this is going to age.
We taking a 25er. We taking maybe 20.
Do you remember how many signed up last year? Roughly?
Well, I think it was maybe, I don't remember. We had 20s, close to 40. I want to say we 30s. We ended with close to 40, and that was before Eddie came out and Brent came out. And
that was at the end of the thing. I think it ended up being like,
I want to say it was 30. Like 28. Yeah, close to 30 is what I think was last year.
Yeah, I would think it'd be within 5 of that number.
Yeah, I think it'd be similar.
That's just me like not saying an answer, but yeah, that's what I would say is similar.
And one thing though that as you were saying, that I was kind of just thinking about myself, and that is it'll be exciting definitely to learn about the rookies. I think one thing that I would like for us to do as we move into a new season is like, each month I feel like maybe we should make sure we highlight a rookie leading into that Iditarod, and so hopefully we get a nice, and I felt like we did that this last season. But even make sure we're like getting them on even more so. And on that note, like if any of you all are listening and have feedback on, what you would love us to do and in our next season, like you can feel free to, hit us up on our various social medias and give us that feedback. So yeah, let's move along to some other news. You were talking about that we had a passing in the mushing community. Rick Mackey passed away, and I know that you wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that, and just kind of pay our respects and dues on that end.
I would give anything to go back in time and be able to have watched the 80s and 90s, 70s of this race, and a lot of it is kind of an oral history. You can see who finished in what position, but not until the 90s there wasn't necessarily like great coverage of the race, and even then it still was limited. Even now, and so I'm learning. It's hard to learn by researching it online, and so you can kind of only learn by people that knew and people that were there. But I did, do some research about Rick Mackey lightly, and I got to meet Brenda, which is the daughter of Rick, and she's got her own kennel with Will Rhodes, and so they got their dog team to the finish line this year with Will as the musher. Anyway, she was super stoked about that, and I had heard about Rick wasn't well, this year, and And so, yeah, it wasn't, it was just because it wasn't a surprise, as Brenda said, doesn't make it any easier for the family. But yeah, Rick had a couple kids. He's brothers with Lance, half brothers, I believe. And then their dad is Dick Mackey. So, if we obviously, Rick was a huge part of the mushing community for literally pretty much the entirety of the Iditarod. His dad, Dick's still with us. You see him at a lot of these races. I saw him at the Connect 200, and I'm like, I'm always nervous and like, I'm just gonna, yeah, I should say hi, but I haven't yet. But yeah, 1983 was when Rick Mackey won his Iditarod. But he finished in the top 10 many times. As I'm going, maybe Brendan, you can pull it up, but he also won the Yukon Quest in 1997, 14 years later. And he ran 22 Iditarods, finished 20 of them. He's got like $250,000 just from Iditarod prize money, but he probably spent a couple $1,000,000 feeding his dogs over the couple decades or 3 decades. But what I've read was that he was a lot of the competitive mushers can be a little abrasive with reporters, and you're running low on sleep and you got a lot on your plate, and reporter asks how the trail, and you're just like, God, what the hell is that? But Rick sounded like he was just the nicest, easiest guy to talk to, after coming right off the trail and doing interviews on the radio. And just it seems like everybody just there's not a single bad thing to say about him. But again, I'm not talking from a place of profound knowledge, but you can just see the devastating loss this is for the mushing community. And seeing a lot of people kind of share stories on Facebook, and it's cool. Clearly he had just a really positive effect on the sled dog world. Mark Nordman said, when he ran his Iditarod, that Rick was a huge help, just giving a bunch of information and support to him, and said he was a real dog man. And a lot of these really incredible mushers and dog people are come out of the woodworks to say how Rick was such a integral part of the scene. And so, yeah, obviously the Mackey family's, synonymous with the mushing world, but yeah, they're the only father and 2 sons trio. And now I'm thinking if we can get Dad to run the Iditarod and then you run the Iditarod, we could maybe tie this record.
Okay.
But you see what I'm saying?
We only can tie it though. We can't
only tie it.
Only tie it.
Yeah, the only trio, their father and sons, to finish the Iditarod. Because it was or to win there. Sorry, so they won it. And then what was the other one? It was there was some maybe I'm misspeaking a little bit. But
dude,
yeah, 13, I mean Dick won. Yeah.
13 top 10s.
13 top 10s.
Like I just looked it up.
Yeah.
It's so impressive just looking at this only Iditarod history. He's got fastest safety to Nome 5-6 times. Humanitarian first.
Yeah, he won a bunch of awards. He won the fastest from safety to Nome a bunch of times too.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. Just super impressive. Super, super impressive. So, yeah, just that was some news. Sad to see him go, but we definitely want to do it. Let's bring it up and talk about it. And like I said, give him a little respect. And geez, just pulling up his stats on the Iditarod only is eye opening to say the least. So I don't know if you have anything else to say on that front.
I do. I think, obviously he was really good at competitive mushing, but like, I think the more important thing is that he was just a really positive community member and was supportive when other people were trying to complete their Iditarod dreams of getting to the finish line or competing. And his dog, he had dogs from all the best, OG mushers, and I'm sure that he was letting dogs from his group go to other people's, and just, yeah, a huge part. His dad, Dick, he was the guy in 1979 that won by 1 second against Rick Swenson.
Oh,
And then
that's right.
Yeah, and then Rick Mackey, he got his 1983 win, and I saw that when he won in 1983, he was 2.5 hours behind. I believe it was like Eep Anderson, 2.5 hours behind him, leaving White Mountain, and then just showed up in the middle of the night or late morning or whatever in the dark to Nome, which back then rushing through the night was maybe a little different. Now when you got these 1,000 lumen headlamps that with super long lasting batteries,
Right.
So I'm not sure what happened to the guy in the first place there, and but obviously Rick was doing something right, and then of course Lance with his 4 in a row wins. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I would say that Mackey, I guess the two families with the most success would be Mackey's and CTV's.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
And putting up those two against each other. I guess it's a difference of 2 versus 3, but still it's impressive.
Yeah, and the two families have like totally like different vibes, but they both work, they're both successful and
yeah,
and good with their dogs.
Yeah. So interesting. So let's move on. We are talking about some other news, and I think it's pretty. I'm sure Riley's pretty stoked. But he recently picked up the top 10 dogs from Brent Sass's team, and so yeah, I would say that the old Dark Horse Kennels could be trying to make a statement this next year, especially if obviously Brent's out and maybe Dallas isn't in. Maybe Riley's going to be making a statement this upcoming year. Who knows? But thoughts on that transaction there, sir?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, Brent's probably never going to be in the Alaska mushing scene again. He had some pretty terrible allegations come out. And obviously, those kind of allegations don't just come from thin air. I don't know. There's no legal battles happening, but that just happens in the mushing community. Not to, that's a poor way of saying it. It just happens. No, I mean, like in the mushing community, if you're a shitty, do something shitty and over again, then the people that are in the mushing community don't want you hanging around. I don't know the details of that situation. I read the article. It was really tough for anyone to read. And, I don't, the Brent just is like, you know what, I'm, gonna just try to start it anew, and we're not going to see, him and his, wild and free in the race too much, probably if at all in the future. So, that's all I can really say about that. But yeah, he took his like A team and pretty much gave it to Riley, or I'm sure maybe Riley paid some money. I don't know, but kind of cool. Riley's kind of started his own kennel from like with just kind of himself, like, and a couple of friends helping out. And like, it's not like he had like access to like a lot of materials, resources, not material, but I guess he didn't have access to like a lot of resources, like, Dallas growing up with dogs, or, some money from his parents, or, he kind of, started his own. I saw his kennel in Fairbanks. I visited it. It was a small cabin that, you put 3 people in the cabin and it was kind of crowded, and, a quaint dog yard and kind of low budget. And now he's, moved down to the Willow Wasilla Valley area. Kinnick, I think maybe is where he's at. And he's been giving, this is his second summer at the Iditarod headquarters, giving sled dog tours, which if you guys, any listeners end up coming up here to visit, you should go to and see Riley there at Iditarod headquarters. Just saw the head veterinarian, Stu Nelson, and Riley Dyke hanging out, and Stu going on a ride with him. And I plan on going and stopping by to say hi to Riley when I drive north. And so my point is that Riley's been through, the growing pains of starting a kennel, which is just like a financial disaster for anybody. And he did it most, with the support of maybe some fans and friends and a little bit of family. But, the reality is he started this modest kennel, and now he's giving tours at the Iditarod headquarters and crushing it from what it looks like. And now he's gotten this opportunity because he went and trained with Brent, and, I think Brent trusts whatever, say what you will about what Brent and his news has come out in the last year, but he's, he loves his dogs. I think everybody can agree. Brent loves his dogs, and he wanted to give his dogs to somebody who he knew would do right by them and he could trust. And Riley and him, it seems like he was a good choice. And I think this is an awesome opportunity for Riley, and to, he already has a really great group of dogs, but obviously we're talking whole another level now. And I'm really excited to see what he can do. I think there's not, having said that, I don't think it's unfair to put a bunch of pressure on him to win the Iditarod now, like that's
no,
it's not that simple, and maybe that's not even his goal, depends on the year, depends on a lot of things, but I bet you he's going to be thinking, maybe I can do something special. Maybe I can finish in the top 10 this coming year. But there's just so many variables to it all. And right now he's just got his head down doing tours, making some money for his dog food and his dog team to then be able to put in a good winter. He was hoping to run the Iditarod this year. Wasn't able to because he had just moved and there was a lot going on, and it's probably a wise decision. And now he's going to be that much more ready, I think, for 2025. And I think that's a really cool story going into next year that we're going to continue to follow closely.
Well stated, sir. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that I don't think it means he's going to win or anything, but I think in Riley's mind, surely he's got to be thinking maybe he does. Maybe he's thinking a top 10. Maybe he's trying to at least like go for his personal, result. So, but obviously there's a lot of time between now and the race next season. But at this junction of where we are in the year, it's kind of fun to speculate on certain things like that. So, but yeah, that was most of the news and things that we've seen lately here in the mushing world in Alaska. And well, only thing left to do is kind of prep a little bit or talk a little bit on our interview with our guest for this episode, Pete Kaiser. Super nice guys. Very much enjoyed getting a chance to meet with him. What was your thoughts and feedback on the episode with him?
Well, firstly, we thought that his microphone was doing great, and then it was a little bit shaky. Of course, here at Mushing Alaska podcast, we can't ever seem to string together the perfect audio, but that's because we got people literally 1,000 miles away and time zones and internets and whatever. But yeah, you can hear every word he's saying. It's just have some patience as you're listening. It'll be fine. Brennan's trying to do his best to make it sound great, on the back end.
I feel bad too, because like we get connected with him and he's like, "Hey guys, can you hear me all right? How do I sound?" And literally in that moment, Sean and I are like, "Dude, you sound perfect. Like this is crystal clear and everything." And then we press record, and I guess like what was happening is, I don't know, like maybe it was something to do with the noise cancellation. Like every so often he would come in at a perfect level, and then for a lot of it he was coming in at a level underneath. So I'm trying to do what I can to kind of enhance that, but I'm not no expert. And there's 2 programs I'm going to run it through, and that's what you guys are getting. So but as Sean said, you can hear everything. Just bear with us on that. And for the record, Pete did ask us how we sounded. We said he sounded good, which he did sound good in that moment. And then yeah, we were too deep in before we were like, yeah, this isn't as good as we thought, but it's all good. And yeah, I enjoyed getting super down to earth, got down to earth kind of guy. The one thing I had the realization of while we were in the middle of conducting this is that he's younger than me, which is just crazy to me, because like I don't feel like I'm old. I guess if you look at me and I'm bald and you see that, you're like, yeah, you're old. But I don't feel old. Sean's laughing over here. But it's like the dude is younger than me. I forget what the number was. Is it 15 in a row?
Yeah.
With the Iditarod. So 15 and in 9, a row.
Or he won 8 Kusko 300s. And we also fucked that up because we were like, dude, you won 7 Kuskos. And he was like, you could see him like a vein showing up in his forehead. And then like 15 minutes later, like, yeah. And after your like 7th win this year, and he's like, another vein pops up.
After Sean fucked it up at least 6 times, is what happened.
Like 20 minutes later, I'm like, yeah. And your 7 wins are amazing. And he was like, dude, it's 8. So that was fun, dude. He was, yeah. I hadn't really talked to Pete too much in my for really until this year, doing Iditarod and seeing him at a couple other things. And it's funny, one time I was like playing music at a bar and he just like walked in, and I was like, what the hell? And there was like 6 people in the bar, and he in Anchorage, so I was just like, huh, is that Pete Kaiser? Nah, I can't be. And then I thought that it was a dream or whatever. And then I brought it up to him, and he was like, yeah, dude, I think I saw you too. But we like both never said hi to each other. But anyways, it was really cool to talk to him, and he's built himself in a wonderful life over in Bethel, and makes Bethel, a lot of people in my life have spent time in Bethel that live here in Anchorage, because I'm friends with some pilots, and it's if you're becoming a bush plane commercial pilot, a lot of them end up working in Bethel because it's a hub village that serves hundreds of other villages that are within maybe 150 miles of there. And maybe not hundreds, but several dozen villages, more than 100 maybe. And so like a lot of people come back and they're like, God, Bethel's just, I'm so happy to be at it. And they're like, well, you just go there, you fly all day and you go to sleep. Pete is like in the center of the community. He's really experienced going up the Kuskokwim River with, he's got a boat, he's a charter that he does. And he's just really makes the most of the opportunities of living in Bethel. It's just amazing outdoor adventures to be had over there. And yeah, I was like, we've talked a lot about that. We talked about, of course, mushing for a minute or two. And it was really cool, man. I think, Pete's maybe mistaken for being like quieter guy, but he's pretty easy to talk to, and easygoing fella. And I was kind of surprised when I asked him to come on. He was like, yeah, whatever. Next week sound good. Okay, cool. So we're really pumped to have him on here. There's probably not too many, hour-long interviews with Pete, maybe a couple with Greg Heister, but after the Iditarod, but this was a totally different vibe than the post Iditarod interview. We talked about so much more than the Iditarod, and it was really, really
I think
cool experience.
One thing that I think, what we're aiming for with this podcast is like bring someone in and just have like a laid back conversation. Sometimes we're like beforehand, we're like, hey, we need to talk about this, that, and the other, but also sometimes we don't. And I think like sometimes maybe it doesn't work out, sometimes it does, but yeah, like what in my opinion of Pete from the outside looking at him, like from Atlanta, Georgia's and not knowing a lot of the scene is like he comes across to me a little like just business, right? But I thought that we was like, I felt like we got him comfortable and kind of got him just talking about other stuff outside of mushing as well. I thought that was kind of fun too. So yeah, just had a good time. Like I keep saying this, but I cannot wait. There's a trip coming in the near future where like I get up there and I just want to like I said, like throw a party and just invite a bunch of different mushers over and just like hang out. And we don't even have to we can talk about whatever, but just like get to know everyone and then like, then go and do some recordings after that. After like, like people are like, oh, we finally met this guy Brendan for the first time in person. So, anyways, yeah, good times with Pete, and then yeah, we have one more episode after this before kind of the summer break with Severin Cathry, and we actually recorded it before Pete, but we're having a little bit of difficulty with that audio more so than Pete. So, in an effort to get something out, we're like, all right, let's get this Pete episode out and buy me a little more time to kind of doctor that up a little bit for you all. But before we put on this next episode, Sean, what do you got for me?
Oh, I just wanted to say, you said like, yeah, sometimes we just want to like have a down to earth conversation, and sometimes it goes better than other times, whatever. You said that. And what kind of came to mind is like our podcast is like a Grateful Dead concert, It's like sometimes it's like the, greatest concert of all time, the springtime of 1970 or whatever. And sometimes it's like, the early 90s, and maybe Bob Weir can just dial it down on the singing a little bit or whatever. That's kind of like me and you in some ways. We're not to compare me to Jerry Garcia, but in some ways,
you're the Jerry Garcia in this.
I feel like I'm the Jerry just because of the hairiness, maybe.
Jeez, and then you're going there with the hair. Wow, what a easy.
I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. You could be Jerry. I could be Bob. I'm probably more Bob.
Who knows?
Maybe you could be like Brent. The keyboard player in the 80s. Anyways, my point is, yeah. Thanks for sticking with us, the folks that have been listening. It's always like, for me, it's I get to engage in person with the mushing community, and right when I'm like, God, this is just such a silly thing we're doing, the podcast, then I meet somebody who tells me, dude, keep it up, great, it's I listen to it all the time, or it's one of my top podcasts I'm listening to, and it's people that are actually running dogs or involved with the mushing community and stuff, and that's really means a lot. And of course, everyone that's not in the necessarily running dogs is still part of the community if you're living down in Georgia or wherever it might be, just because you're not actually up here running dogs or whatever, you're still part of this community. And we really appreciate you listening and being through the ups and downs of our show. And we want to just continue to push forward, and we might have some lulls in the summer, but we're going to be bringing it back. And it's just, we want to get it is 1% better every time, 2% better every time. And so thank you guys so much for listening. And I hope you enjoy our conversation with the 8-time Kusko champion and the 2019 Iditarod champion, Pete Kaiser from Bethel, Alaska.
All righty, folks. Our next guest up, we're excited to have on. We haven't had an Iditarod winner on in a while, so it's exciting for us to do that. And welcome to the show, Pete Kaiser, man. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, interested to see what this is all about.
Yeah, we are too, man. We have no idea. But yeah, dude, I know that like breakup season, and of course in Alaska in general is a thing, but in Bethel, it's kind of remarkable from my understanding. Just you guys have all your buildings like on stilts and you're battling like flooding and stuff. I don't know if I'm right on that, but like how is like a typical breakup season in the Delta, down there?
Yeah, there's parts of town that are a little more susceptible to flooding, but we haven't actually had a big flood in Bethel for quite a few years. When I was a kid, there was some big ones where people were actually using their boats to like get up to the front steps of their house and stuff like that. But there's some different villages along the river that are definitely more susceptible every year to more flooding. And every year we kind of cross our finger that we don't have that happen. But so we'll see. Some ice is starting to shift upriver, up near Antioch and above Antioch. And so probably here in the next 10 days or so, we're probably going to see some movement in front of Bethel. So,
oh man,
time of year shift from one season to the next.
So there's still like the river's still pretty solid.
Yeah, I was just out on the river with a snow machine last week, so we're still traveling on it, so we'll use it right up until the last minute.
That's pretty wild. So yeah, it's like a sudden. It happens in like, does it just like open up in one day? Like kind of like it just in a one big moment. It's just because you got all that ice that kind of breaks up and piles up and.
Yeah, some years it's more drawn out, and other years it's quick. Some years it'll break up actually on the other side of the river, but kind of hold steady right in front of town, or kind of on the back. But Oxbow, like a little less current. So it just depends on the year. Some years it flushes out quick. Some years it goes by. There's ice going by for 5 or 6 days before you can really get out with a boat and that stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So you grew up in Bethel, right?
Yep. I've been out here pretty much my entire life.
And
are you a Bethelian? Like what is the terminology for being born and raised in Bethel?
Bethelite, maybe.
Bethelite. We're Georgian, even though Sean claims Alaska now. So I was just kind of curious about that.
I'm proud of my Georgia upbringing. But yeah. So what was like? I mean, I know what life is like in general. They're just not as well as someone that lives there, but I've at least been there a few times, and just to see the scene, and it's like I've only gone during Kusko week. And you're usually pretty busy that weekend, but the scene is just so fun, and everybody's just brought together. And I only know, like, it's like Super Bowl weekend there, I feel like, and it's just so exciting. And I've never been there like when there's not the Kusko, so I imagine obviously there's plenty of quiet time in Bethel, but just like there's just an insane amount of villages that Bethel's kind of like the city for like in a lot of ways, Brendan, like Atlanta is to the southeast, how it's like the big city in the southeast. Bethel's, on a smaller scale, it's kind of like that over there. And then you can fly Alaska Airlines flights into Bethel. And then from there, you have several dozen villages that you can access with snow machine and boats and stuff. And so I'm curious, just like in general about your childhood there, but also like how like intermingled are all the smaller villages? Like, are you hanging out with the homies in Tulaksak? How often are you seeing, Richie and Antioch? And, I just like, I don't really know what like the rest of the year looks like besides Kusko weekend over there.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it on, Bethel being the epicenter for all the villages. It's the main hub for transportation, like you said. If you need to go to Anchorage, you gotta go through Bethel. Healthcare, I think it's the healthcare center here is provides health service for I think 56 different villages that include lower Yukon villages and lower and middle Kuskokwim villages. So we're the healthcare hub for all that stuff as well, and just really everything in general, grocery shopping. So any particular day during the year, have a number of, the population is going to be boosted just by the amount of people that are coming and going from the villages in and out of town, whether that be by boat or snow machine. And, a lot of times truck in the winter when the ice road is good to go. So yeah, it's a busy place. A lot of construction work that happens in the summer, not just in Bethel, but in the villages. A lot of shifting ground out here. We're kind of in a swampy area, so runways and roads seem like they are endlessly being fixed. And a lot of the construction work in the villages all comes through Bethel. All the barging traffic comes through Bethel. I think we're the third busiest airport in the state as far as traffic in and out. And so it's just a really busy place, and always something going on here. But yeah, K300 weekend is definitely, kind of like the big weekend of the long, dark winter. And it always feels like we're starting to gain a little daylight up that weekend too. So that is an exciting weekend for sure. But, as far as growing up there, I enjoy a lot of the things that Bethel has to offer. And I think I've always said, like, people ask, what's there to do in Bethel? And, it offers a real unique list of things to do. If you don't enjoy being out and taking advantage of the countryside and, getting in your boat or getting on your snow machine or getting on your dog team and doing stuff like that, then it probably, isn't for you. There's people that show up here from, halfway across the world and end up staying here the rest of their lives and falling in love with the place. And there's other people that show up and they can't wait to get out of here, and they're on the next jet out. So it's not for everybody, but if you like freedom and some different opportunities and being able to explore the countryside, it's a pretty fascinating place that way.
Yeah, the river provides some serious abilities to get around and for most of the year. And yeah, that I'm like almost sold. That was a really good like Bethel pep talk. I'm like, all right, maybe I need to check it out over there. No, that's cool to hear about that. And it's like I said, I just am blown away by the Kusko weekend and how just fun everything is, and everybody's super welcoming and it can be, sometimes you go into like a village and you're just kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to step on any toes or anything, but everybody's just kind of opens up their house and letting a bunch of smelly dogs come and live in their yard. And that's one thing I think people always ask about, like Iditarod, like, do you think this is the last year they'll run the Iditarod? It's like, I feel like I've gotten that question from a lot of people. I'm sure you have too. That how many more years are, because it's just the financial aspect and the PR of everything. It seems like the Kusko is like completely independent from that. Like if the Iditarod were to somehow just not be around, like it feels like the Kusko race.
Kusko's
You know,
good to
they're
go.
very well funded. I don't know. I hear that a lot of the funding is from like bingo nights or something. You know, I don't know if that's a thing or if I'm right or wrong about that, but like it just seems like the culture of mushing in Bethel is just like there to stay for, you know, forever potentially. You know, am I right? Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, we've built, what's been built out here is a pretty impressive scene with a lot of support, and I really feel like it's kind of one of the last rural areas right now that has a strong mushing presence. At one point Nome did, and Kotzebue still does, but I don't think it's quite what it was at one point. So I feel like we're kind of one of the last areas that has this real strong rural mushing presence. And now in the last few years, we're kind of onto a whole new generation of young mushing talent out here too, which is cool to see. I grew up kind of as one of the younger mushers, and with a group of older local guys that I raced against a lot, and now we're seeing a lot of their kids who are the next generation after I am. So that's real exciting, because you kind of always wonder, who's going to be the next group of young guys to kind of take over, because you need that influx of talent and dedication for sure. And there's multiple young, enthusiastic mushers out here, and so that that really bodes well for the future of our mushing scene out here.
Yeah, Raymond Alexi is the one that comes to mind, and but I see a lot of names, not just out of the Bethel events that you guys have, by the way, just like almost every weekend, maybe from starting in the new year, you pretty much have some kind of mushing event almost every weekend. And I remember, I don't know if it was this year, it was probably last year, but like, is it Raymond Alexi that he like, he's been winning pretty much every event that's not the Kusko. And then you like won the Kusko, and you're like, hey, like Raymond, like appreciate you letting me win this one,
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's a real talent, and he's been on a heck of a hot streak out here. Hope to see him back in the Kusko next year, and it's exciting. It's and it challenges everybody. The more competition we have out here, the better. So yeah, it's super exciting to see all the young mushers, and there's some more coming out as long as they, if they decide to stick with it here and stay dedicated. They're going to be winning races too here pretty soon.
Yeah, so, I go ahead, Brennan.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I guess you refer to yourself as kind of like an older musher, but like the reality is you're younger than me. I believe I turned 38 this year, so but like, do you view, like, are you kind of like getting ready to maybe do like, how long do you want to mush for? Like, are you thinking about maybe taking a break for a little bit? I'm just thinking about like, okay, I have a 2-year-old son, right? And I'm like looking at, before you came on, I'm like, all right, let's look at what you've done. And I'm like, all right, 15 consecutive Iditarods in a row, like 9 top 10s, 7 Kusko wins, and I'm like, oh man, this guy, he's probably got to be pretty old. And I'm like, man, he's younger than me. So, but no, I mean, just like, you clearly have had a long career already in mushing. So like, what are you thinking about, in the future? Is that like something you want to continue to do?
Yeah, good question. I honestly don't know the answer to that. For the last few years, I've kind of been on a year-to-year basis with all this. I got plenty of other stuff going on in my life. And it, definitely gets more complicated every year. We've got 2 kids, and we've had 2 kids for a while now, but so we've kind of navigated that parenthood and all that good stuff, along with, trying to remain competitive and as dedicated you need to be to be competitive. So yeah, I'm just kind of taking it year by year. My oldest son now is kind of getting to the age where he, might show a little interest. I'm not sure if I really want to get him hooked on mushing or not. It can be definitely not going to push him down that path. But there's part of me part of me that, kind of would maybe want to see him have the opportunity at least to do a little bit of racing, or, even just recreational mushing and enjoy this a little bit in his youth. And so there's that aspect of it that I kind of, weigh in balance when I'm thinking about how much longer I want to do this. And yeah, so, and now we're in a position with the Kusko, a position that I really never thought I'd be in, being one win away from tying Jeff's record. And so that kind of weighs on you too a little bit. If I were to say I'm not going to race anymore after this year or something, you might kind of wonder, well, what if I would have tried at least to tie him or something like that. So there's a lot of different factors. And I'm busy in the summer. We run our own business in the summer, and so yeah, there's a lot of different factors. And my best answer is I'm kind of on a year-to-year basis with it, and I could be doing it for another 10 or 15 years, maybe another years. You never know. We just kind of take life as it comes, and we'll figure it out as we go.
I'm curious, how old are your kids?
My son's 11 and my daughter's 6.
Wow. So you've been able to maintain that racing consistency as long with those kids. It's just like, I don't know. For me, like, life paused for a little while. So I'm always amazed at the mushers that are able to like pull it off. And then, it sounds like you have a lot of other things that pull you in different directions, which I'm curious about, but also I know, Sean, I kind of stole the thunder from you, so you can.
No, you're good. I want you to chime in, man. I'm going to keep firing questions until you cut me off with the question.
Okay.
So
all right, cool.
I need you
I'll
to
keep
do
cutting
that.
you off.
Yes,
then.
keep stepping up and doing that. And
well, so yeah, I was curious. We have our guests on, and we just are kind of thinking of you all from the mushing perspective, but I'm curious, you just said or alluded to a lot of things like pulling you in different directions. Like what are you doing when you're not doing the mushing scene? Like what
the summer job.
What's the summer job,
So right now, since 2020, we've been running a boat charter business in the summer. I pretty much grew up on boats and commercial fished, but since I was in diapers when there was a commercial fishery on the Kusko. But I've been on recreationally and commercially on boats pretty much my whole life, and boats are kind of one of my passions aside from mushing. So I did construction for which actually part of that construction job was working on a barge. In my earlier days of running Iditarod, it was like probably 2008 through 2013. So I worked on a barge on Kusko that supplied stuff for construction jobs and stuff like that. And then after my son was born, they gave me a job here in Bethel in their construction yard. I didn't have to be gone all summer. And so I worked for that company for over 13 years till 2020, and then had an opportunity to buy a family friend's boat charter business. They did guiding and different various things, but my kind of forte is just sticking to the charter side of things. So since 2020, we've been running that boat business, and it kind of allows me to combine two of my favorite things, work at them year round, that being mushing and then boating in the summer. So it's been a nice change and kind of balance my life out a little more. I can be my own boss, and it gives me a little more flexibility in the summer to do stuff with the kids and with the family, and go camping when we need and want to go camping and do stuff like that. And if we're so busy all winter, doesn't allow a lot of time for vacation time. So summers are, I guess I have a little more control over some of the weekends in my summer now, even though it does still keep us pretty busy. Yeah.
Guiding out there, like, that's one of the cool things about Alaska is like 95% or more of the people that come and visit are coming and doing probably through a cruise one way or another. They're coming up to, and they do the Seward to Fairbanks thing. And then you've got like the hunting, the tourism, and these guys going out to remote lodges in your neck of the woods and Kodiak and so it's just like the clients that you must get to charter in that neck of the woods, it's got to be a pretty cool clientele, I would think, coming and not just going to Alaska, but going to Bethel. That's not like, that's not your typical destination, so like you got some pretty cool clients, I bet, right?
Yeah, we have some pretty hidden gem little rivers out here, like you said, Bethel's not really a hot spot for tourism, but people that know about some of them fishing opportunities and stuff out here. Yeah, and a lot of repeat customers now, and people you get to see every other year make the trek up, and yeah, it's fun work. But aside from tourists too, I like we had talked about at the beginning, with Bethel being the hub, I ended up transporting more like actually like a river taxi type thing, just between some of the villages in Bethel in the summer, back and forth along the freight and stuff like that. I have a boat that can haul, four wheelers and thousands of pounds of lumber and stuff like that. And it's like there's always something that somebody moved around. There's 6 villages within 30 river miles of Bethel, so that there's a lot of stuff going in and out, and kind of found a little niche opportunity that allowed me to run boats.
Nice. And so to the Kusko, back to some, I guess we're like a mushing podcast, or whatever, but I don't know. I'm curious about everything that in the lifestyle that you're living, like one of the most authentic Alaskan lifestyles. I'm certainly not here in Anchorage, but I try. And, but when it comes, you've had like this incredible success in the Kusko, I wish I would have been, I really wish I could have seen prime Jeff King, Lance and Swingley and Boozer and all that. And you kind of grew up like seeing that. And that might've been part of your inspiration, to get into it. Obviously Bethel is a mushing hub too. So, but like, what was it like seeing Jeff win 9 Kuskos, Mr. Winningest musher of all time, as he is reminding this visitors of, and so then you go and you've been able to, create your own consistency. And it's so hard to be consistent in mushing because there's so many variables. You have years where there's just a ribbon of snow on the track and you're doing these weird, maybe alternate routes. And then you've got great snow and then it's stormy and then it's bluebird. And that's why you don't see people have continued success winning the Iditarod all the time. It's so rare to have a 4-time champion. And so, but you go and win the same event 7 times in the last like 9 years or whatever. And I remember I was 8 times. Oh yeah. Thank you. All right. We said it 7 times on the internet. That's my bad. I know that Jeff went it 9 times and you said it 1 more time. So I should have known that. Thank you for correcting me. Yeah. We've made that wrong too many times.
I'll take the blame. I'll take the blame on that.
All right. But yeah, you win it 8 times and in the last 10 years. And it was did Failer win 1 year and Richie the other?
Yeah.
And also shout out to Richie, because you said you're year to year. He probably was also year to year. And he's got a little more quiet, sounds like he's got a more quiet mushing lifestyle these days and spending time with the kid. And, but yeah, like, dude, talk about your success in the Kusko and how awesome that's probably been. And, how you've been able to be so solid, over so many years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a nutshell, we've kind of just figured out a formula that's worked so far, and it hasn't backfired in a way that we felt like we needed to change anything significantly. But there's a lot of factors and variables, I guess, involved in all that. But the two constant things that have not changed much over the last 10 years is that genetics are basically the same genetics that we're probably on our 3rd generation of Kusko winning dog out there, but genetics are all the same, and our approach to training is very similar. Every year it's slightly different. What I think the team needs, but it's generally generally very consistent year to year. So, I feel like I have a really good understanding of how the team will respond to different types of training just because I'm, about 14 years with these same genetics now. And, generation to generation, they seem to pass on a lot of the same traits. So I just feel like I have a really good understanding of what they're capable of and what type of training they need and then how they'll respond to different types of training. I guess, you always need a pinch of luck. And, I think that there's some aspect of being able to train out here and getting them used to different things that you're going to see during the race definitely helps. There was, before I started winning, and there was a time where people said you couldn't train out here and win the race because it was too difficult of training conditions and weather. And then, and then since I've had some success, I've heard, through the grapevine, people saying, you can't win unless you train out there. So, there's two different thought processes on that. I definitely will say that there are some conditions that I think, help, but there's times that we get trapped into some real gnarly weather and trail conditions that I know there's no way they could be, advantageous to have to deal with them for that many weeks in a row or stuff like that. But, I've just been real fortunate, and we put most of our focus on the Kusko 300. Ever since I started racing, I got into it with the idea that I wanted to win the Kusko, and Iditarod was slightly an afterthought. And then we got involved in Iditarod too. But like when I'm breeding dogs and trying to raise a team, and all my training philosophy and all that stuff really revolves more around my focus on winning the Kusko than it does Iditarod. And I think there's probably some stuff that if I really wanted to, it wasn't focused on the Kusko and wanted to put more focus on Iditarod, probably would train differently, slightly differently. But I think we've done a pretty good job of, being able to focus on the Kusko, yet still be able to bring a pretty competitive team to Iditarod most years and have some success there too. But I think it's a little bit of a trade-off. It's hard to master both at the same time with the same team in the same year. So, like I said, for the last over 15 years or whatever it's been, our main focus has been on the Kusko, and I think that's helped with some of our success there.
The Kusko is such a curious, I've only ran Copper Basin, Yukon Quest 300, and a couple of shorter races, and it's like to watch the Kusko is just such a separate mid-distance race. Having only the 10 hours of mandatory rest, and the 40 hours or less now. To get to the finish line. And it's just like, it makes, I guess, you gotta, it makes sense. You get your training for that kind of event. There's not really another event like that. And, so like, I don't know. Do you, you're not going to tell us all your secrets on how you got to win 8 Kuskos. But like, Are you doing like a lot of long runs in the training, or are you kind of like just kind of getting them ready for that? And I mean, because it's not like super common people go and do a 100-mile run in training is the I gather. So like what's like some of the, besides the fact that you live in Bethel and you get to experience those conditions, it's just such a crazy, unique race. And like, what's like some of the things that are just better for Kusko than that are specific to Kusko training?
I mean, I really don't feel like there's anything I do that's off the wall or kind of like a big secret or anything. But I will say that I have been taught over the years, not, how do I put this? The weather has dictated my training. Like, everybody has kind of an idea of what they want to do in training. And I rarely, in my early years of preparing for Iditarod and Kusko, I was always frustrated with what the weather and the trail conditions would allow me to do. I always wanted to do more, and I would always be limited by what the weather and trail would allow me to do. We get rain and meltdowns out here and glare ice and all kinds of stuff and storms and wind. And, it's just, you really have to train with what the weather allows you to do. You can't force it when it's bad out here. So I guess, dealing with a bunch of those years where it was like that, and some years I actually left. I spent time in Anna in 14, 15, 16, and 17. I think I spent some time up there. But those challenging conditions kind of taught me things about training, really, that I was prepared to train harder, so to speak, more miles, so to speak, longer, who knows, but being limited with the weather and the trails, and then having success with the type of training we were allowed to do kind of opened my eyes to, here we are winning this race and having success consistently. And I can look back at all our training logs, and it's kind of consistently the same, because no matter how many miles I say I want to put on a dog team this year, I'll never get there. Like if I set some big goal for putting miles on out here, I'm never going to get there, because we just have too much bad weather and too much poor trail conditions. So I've just kind of learned from that this is actually ideal for this team. It seems like, at least for the Kusko. Like I said, I think if I wanted to be a little more consistent in the Iditarod, I'd probably switch things up a bit. Maybe even travel more just to get more opportunities to do more on better, more forgiving trails. But yeah, I think a lot of our training has been learned from what we couldn't do and what we could do. So it's kind of interesting that way. I mean, I've kind of learned over the years, just kind of, it's not broke, don't fix it, and keep it the same for now, at least.
Yeah. I wouldn't think you need to make too many adjustments going into next year. Brennan?
So I had written down a few things I was curious about. So you talked about your dog genetics being the same for now 3 generations. What kind of genetics are you working with?
Well, pretty much everything goes back to a dog named Shannon that I bought from Jeff King when he first retirement in 2010, I think. And she was part of his main team, out of his main leader, Salem. It's the Colton Artist winner in 2006. And so, I knew, if I had the opportunity, I wanted to build a team, with Jeff's genetics, just because he had so much success out here at Bethel, and with the Kusko 300, that, it made a lot of sense to go straight to him and figure that out from there. But it was a real unique opportunity to purchase that dog and a couple other dogs. I don't think she would have ever been sold in her prime if he wasn't having that retirement. And I remember being in Anchorage. I talked to him. He planned to run that 2010 race, which was my rookie race, and then sell his main team after the race. And I remember being so dead set on I need this dog, and I had kind of followed his racing, and I was aware of Shannon and that she hadn't had any proven pups at that point. I think what he had out of her was just less than a year old group of dogs. So nothing proven, but anyway, I went and met him at his hotel room 2 days before Iditarod started in Anchorage, and made a deal with him on 3 or 4 dogs, and Shannon was one of them, and stuff named Dollar was another one, and a couple more. And then I got them after the race was over. And basically every dog in my yard right now is related to Shannon, and she's kind of a fairly well-known dog in mushing circles. Jake Berkowitz had some dogs kind of related to her. I can't remember the exact relation, but yeah, So and then at that point, a year or so after that, there was some young dogs were doing well with other people. So I kind of repeated same breeding he had done to that John Little Dog Solomon, and had some good results. And then I ended up breeding him one dog, Mackey's dog Dread, and another Doro offspring named Wizard that came from Chewy Courier. So yeah, and basically, all my best dogs are related to her. And a lot of grand pups now out of her. But those initial winning teams were all pups from her. But yeah, the core of my team is all revolved around that dog Shannon, and she was pretty instrumental in our quick come up and being able to compete. And where we kind of got started with it all.
That's awesome. So as you're telling this story, I'm just like kind of running the math in my head, right? So you're like 21, 22 at the time. How does that conversation even go down with, like you're a young musher at the time. You've got Jeff, who's, got all the wins at the time. And is that just kind of naturally happen, or like, I don't know. I'm just thinking of, for anyone who's young that's trying to break into the scene now, like how did that come about?
Like the deal with Jeff, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it was a special scenario where, he was retiring and so I had an opportunity that normally wouldn't be there. We had bought, me and my dad had bought dogs from Jeff before that. So we had a relationship with him buying dogs and good luck buying dogs with him before that. So, we were kind of just in the right fashion. And I had a real strong feeling about the opportunity that was there, and, didn't have a lot of money at the time, but I jumped on it and spent all the money I had on, 3 or 4 of those dogs. And it absolutely was, the best money I've ever spent. It seemed like a crazy purchase at the time, but now in hindsight, it was cheap, really.
Nice.
Yeah, I my understanding is like, firstly, Jeff King's dog's genetics in that era is like, considered, I mean, from what I hear, and I'm not, and I know, having worked for him for a few years, but it just seems like everybody's looking to get in a little slice of that pie. And if it doesn't have to be your exclusive genetics, but just to incorporate, one of those King lines into your dogs. It seems to have given a lot of mushers success. You could probably, most of the people that have been in the front of the Iditarod have at least a dog or two on their team with King genetics. I remember him saying that like if you have like a prime dog from his team was like, at least this is what he said in the tours, was like $4 or $5 grand for a dog. And then like the most that anyone's ever, spent, I don't know. I've heard people spending 10 grand on a dog. I don't know, but that's like, it's, that's pennies compared to, horses but
right.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like that could be 4 dogs and be a lot of money for me at 21. Play that much.
Yeah.
So you have got, then you train for Kusko and you get back home, the long journey from the Kusko race back to your home, and and then you shift to Iditarod mode. And so, what is that shift look like? You got spa treatment, R&R, for your winning team, and then you're getting drop bags ready. But like, how do you make that transition from Kusko dog team? They already got like the base of miles, so there's just like a slight manipulation into like Iditarod mode, and you only have like not even 2 months. You got like 4, 5, 6 weeks of and a bunch of crap to accomplish. I mean, how's that going? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's that lasts between Kusko and Iditarod is a pretty hectic time. It always feels like I get to the start line of the Kusko in pretty good shape, kind of mentally. And then as soon as Iditarod drop bags hit, there's a pretty good burnout there. And it's kind of a scramble too. We're shipping everything out here for drop bags, and then putting it all together out here, and then shipping it out to Anchorage. So it kind of has to be done extra timely. I can't wait until the last minute, which is probably a good thing. But we have weather roll in. I've got to make sure I can get those bags out on a flight days in advance of when they're due in Anchorage. Make sure they stay frozen and all that good stuff. So it gets pretty hectic with drop bags. And on the last few winters, it seems like we've had our stormiest parts of the winter in February, like right when we're trying to do our last prep for Iditarod. But we basically just do what we can do from Kusko to Iditarod. We can maybe a little more camping, but yeah, like you said, a lot of the training's done, a lot of the conditioning's done. There's not a whole lot more conditioning you're going to get in there. It's just kind of trying to get them in the right headspace mentally for Iditarod, and just keep them moving and keep them loose. But there's just so much crap going on. Travel to Anchorage before the race as well, having to get settled in there and gotta hang out in Anchorage for a week or whatnot. So yeah, it's a busy month. It definitely takes its toll on I think that all that stuff, the lead up to Iditarod and the week in Anchorage is definitely hard. Correct.
Yeah, that week in Anchorage, I mean, having just only experienced it really one time, it's just like you got all this crap on your mind about the race, and you're like kissing babies and shaking hands and doing interviews and eating hot dogs, you're running around Anchorage, and you're like, man. And then like 2021, you got to do this too. We didn't do the ceremonial, and I was like, I was still like super stressed the day before, and then I had to check myself, wait a second, I have all day, I didn't have to go and drive to Anchorage and do a 10-mile lap or whatever. But
by far the worst experiences were going to Fairbanks those 2 years that we had to truck to Fairbanks, do the ceremony, do all the Anchorage stuff for a week, the banquet, the ceremonial start, and then drive all the way to Fairbanks. And both years it was shit in Fairbanks and 50 below in Fairbanks. And the first year, for some dumb reason, we decided to stay at Pike's Landing, where every musher and every tourist was staying, and all the trailers and trucks were out in the parking lot inches from each other, and you're trying to drop dogs and it's 50 below and just absolutely chaotic. I remember just starting both those races just exhausted, completely spent. It's can't wait.
Oh my God.
Go 50 miles and face plant into my sled. Yeah, those ones were rough. I never want to do a Fairbanks start. Just logistical nightmares just amplified with having to do all that, and the whole time you're worried about your truck breaking down or a trailer spinning off your the tire spinning off your trailer. It's it's just too much. So yeah, those Fairbanks starts were not fun.
It goes back to it's harder to get to the start line than it is to the finish line sometimes, if not all the time. Sure. So here, I'm going to show you this this video that you got to enable screen sharing, Brendan. This video that I'm sure that you will probably watch it I don't know, once or twice a day. But let's see, here we go. Let's find can't find it. There we go. Share. All right, boom, dude. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow. Pulling up. Look at that.
Yeah. Haven't watched that in a few years, I guess.
Man.
Nice. All right. I just had to show it because it's so cool. But yeah. So, dude, firstly, that like, there's like a slow motion of you like doing that with like the crowd cheering and the flash into the cameras. And it's just, I don't know. I couldn't find that, but it was probably in the Iditarod documentary that year, but it was just so cool. Like the vibe at the end there, again, I've only been watching it since 2017, but like that was like such a cool energy at the finish line. And so, yeah, like, you ran on Iditarod a bunch of times leading up to that, 7 or 8 times. And you finally, the cards fall into place for you to get there in first place. And like, yeah, how like, you've been able to sit back and kind of think about it now for, you've probably spent some time reflecting on that year over the last 5 years. Like, what do you think of that whole experience? And you've continued to have success afterwards, but it's just such a tough race to pull off multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, that was a very special moment. A lot of years of hard work and, wondering if it's ever going to pan out, to culminate in something like that. And so there was a lot of emotions, in there. And then, I had your on my ass, making up a lot of time on me right at the end, like literally right at the end. He wasn't catching me, I don't think at all, like the safety. And then, we didn't even slow down a whole lot from safety to known, but all of a sudden he put on a burn and I'm, was catching up. So I was a little stressed about that. So, probably the pumping my fist in the air was more just happy that, Yor wasn't passing me on Front Street there or something. But yeah, it was just a real special time, like I put hundreds and thousands of hours into this, but I have a lot of people that have supported me too. And so I think the most special thing that sits with me from all that is kind of just seeing how happy it made people that have supported me all these years, my family, friends, and, sponsors, and just other people from Bethel, everybody up and down the Kusko River and this whole area was just so excited about it. And I think, if there's something that really pops out to me from that whole experience, it was seeing how happy it made like lots of people. And so that was real neat. Yeah, I guess it's not really something I think about daily or anything, but it does
alarm goes off and you just press play. Good morning.
Yeah. No, it definitely feels good to get to accomplish a goal like that. Then not long after, you just want to try to win again, as long as you're beat, try to win again. But obviously we haven't been able to do that. But like you said, it's not easy. Lots of variables, and we definitely try our best every year. Leave no stone unturned. But yeah, tough.
Yeah, well, that's to me, when I think about getting back out there, that's certainly a significant slice of the pie. Is just like, it brought all these people together for you winning it, but for me just being in it and trying to get to the finish line, it just brings together my family and my friends, and in a way that I don't ever experience in any other, part of my life. Just them being there to support me, even if it's just to be following along. And if that's the only support, that it's awesome. And it brings everyone together and they all get excited about it. And next thing you know, we're all traveling to Alaska and we're having a campfire together. And, and it's like, that's almost, obviously I love running dogs and that whole, being by yourself out there and trying to accomplish a big goal and all the training that goes up to it and da-da-da-da-da. But that aspect of it is really cool too. And I think that is true for everybody, especially like rookies getting to the finish line. And then, people like you have been trying to get after it, trying to get that podium finish in first place. And you almost, I mean, you came pretty close, Ryan Reddington's year. and that was exciting. I thought you might be able to
Dude,
get
yeah.
to catch up, and you know what I don't know, that just kind of popped up in my head. What did you think about, you know, your coast run in Ryan's year, which was, I guess, 2023?
Yeah, you know, I felt like we were kind of in position to pull it off there. Cal tag on, but he kept pushing hard. I had a young, relatively young team. I had a lot of 2-year-olds in the team, so I felt like at that point we were kind of already, you know, overachieving a little bit. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, this was a positive experience for the young dogs who've done really well. And we just kind of got to a point there in Koyak where some of those young dogs were getting a little mentally tired. And then, you know, we still had a pretty good run over to Elam. But, you know, Ryan was able to push through Elam. And I kind of knew on my way home, like, this team needs a break in Elam. And so, you know, we decided to take a break there. And I didn't feel like a 1 or 2 hour break was going to be the right thing to do. I felt like if I was going to stop and give them a break, but I was going to give them a real break. And, you know, our chances of winning at that point, I thought, were, you know, Ryan having trouble. And I really didn't think it would matter whether we took a 2 hour break or a 4.5 hour break. He was going to have trouble. We're going to beat him. And so that was kind of my gamble at that point. I guess what actually happened is he didn't have trouble, but he slowed down. And we were able to make up a lot of time just on foot speed. So, you know, and I think I lost to him by an hour, but I think I was probably closer to 4 hours behind him leaving Elam. And so, you know, from Elam to Nome, I think we ran at least 3.5 hours faster than just foot speed. But yeah, in hindsight, you know, if I took a 1 hour less break in Elam, maybe I would have won, maybe not. You never know. But, you know, I was happy with the decisions we made with the team. I felt like every dog in that team came through that race really strong. I felt like probably could have overdone it a little bit if we didn't stop in Elam. So with those younger dogs, and, you know, they were a big part of the team at that point. I didn't have enough dogs where I could just drop all the 2-year-olds, you know, and still have much of a team. So that was our decision. And, you know, I've always kind of told myself a rule. I'm on much by that I'd always rather be judged by the rest that I take than the rest that I don't take. So, you know, kind of always kind of err on the side of caution, and however that panned out, that's how it goes.
Yeah, 2-year-olds are like, to take a team of 2-year-olds and be up there is insane in the first place. You know, it's just a shout out to, or just, it's just a incredible group of dogs, and your training and genetics, and then, you know, you just want to, considering, you know, you were going to continue to do this and continue to, that's your core of your team for the next 6 years or whatever, or 5 years. And it's like, all right, you know, you could maybe push and maybe win, but then, you know, your dogs might not be that excited about it. You know, they might be, you want them to have fun and them to be excited to come back and do it again next year. And, you know, even if you do to cut that rest, you know, it could have consequences to their mentality moving forward. And so, you know, yeah, that's
I was also in a position where I didn't have anybody close enough behind me that I, you know, if I took a 4.5 hour break or whatever it was, I didn't have to worry about getting run over by 5 or 6 teams. So that factored into that too, for sure. And so, you know, as you're trying to figure out all these different things and calculations when you're really sleep deprived at the end of the race, you know, I thought, and I had been chasing Ryan for a long time at this point. Like, we'd been traveling together whole race, you know, all the way up to Yukon. He had more speed than me at times. At other times, I had a little more speed than him. But overall, you know, now we're all, and I'm kind of waiting, hoping that he's going to fade at some point, and it's not happening. Now we're in Elam, and he still hasn't faded. And you know, he's got a really heck of a good team, and so I'm thinking I can go through here too, and he still has a lead on me at that point. I can go through Elam too, and you know, I could end up in a position where that I don't want to be in with these younger dogs in this team and still get second place, or I can take 4.5 hours and get second place. So
Right.
And still give myself a shot taking a break there, that if something happens to him, I still have a shot at winning the race. So, I just trying to factor all those things in. But yeah, I don't like it. I don't really dwell on it. It's just kind of the way it played out. And I think the only thing I could think of in hindsight is, if I would have stayed one less hour, and it might have been very close at the end, but that's hindsight. And I am glad I don't regret not staying. We needed to take a break there, and I'm glad. It just came down to maybe I stayed a little too long. But yeah, that's how that played out. And the whole idea was, looking at that team throughout that whole race, a lot of 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and relatively young team, and seeing how much potential they had. Thinking about the next year, of course, with this year, we set them up right for this year, how good they could be this year. And obviously our race didn't pan out this year the way I had hoped, but that's just kind of how Iditarod works. I think a lot of the years where I've told myself, like, this is the best team I have and the best training I have, it always ends up being more things seem to go wrong than when I go into the race with kind of not so big expectations. And so that's just kind of how Iditarod works, seems like. Never really know.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, there's an infinite variables, and yeah, it seemed that hindsight 2020, whatever. That's a terrible way to look at things. It's hindsight 2020. I've done that for my 2020 Iditarod plenty of times, and it's not a healthy way to go about
the year
things.
The year I won Iditarod too, I thought that team was a year away from being able to compete for the win, and then we won with that team. And so the next year I was super excited coming off that win, thinking the team's even better, more mature, more experienced, all that good stuff. And then we just had a slew of problems the whole race. And I felt like we were very well prepared for that race. And then we get in the race and it was dogs and heat and sick dogs. And then I got sick at the end, and it was just a total struggle from start to finish. So yeah, I mean, it's just funny. Most of those years where I feel like I've got all my ducks in a row, it's awesome. Something comes up. Yeah, like I said, that's Iditarod.
I was going to ask that year, the Ryan year, like that move from Koyuk to White Mountain, like is that a move that you like, I guess if you have it in the bag, you could do that, but like you wouldn't normally make that big of a run usually. I'm just kind of curious.
I've done it plenty of times.
Okay.
It just really, if the team's set up for it or not. And there's just so many variables. If I think they can do it, absolutely, I'll do it. And I've done it quite a few times. I did it the year before that, in whatever that would have been, 2023, and was able to pass a few teams sitting in Elam that year. We kind of run our race that year, more kind of around between 10th and 15th, and then had the idea of making that strong push at the end and trying to pick some people off at the end. So it kind of worked out that way. But yeah, there's years where that's a totally doable move, and there's years where it's not. It really just depends, where the team's at that point. And I mean, even the year that I won, I stopped in Elam. Super slow trail. That's a big factor. If you get wind and a blown in trail. That year that I won, I was basically breaking trail from way up to the finish line, all blown in and windy. But yeah, I stopped too. You get the wrong trail on the coast and it'll turn a 5.5 hour run into 7.5 hour run, And so if you're doing a 7.5 hour run from Koyuk to Elam, and then another 7.5 hour run to White Mountain, you don't stop. Talking like a 15 hour run, you're going to have all your ducks in a row to do that. And, there's some years where there's teams that, just about every year, there's teams that can pull. You kind of got to be set up for it. Yeah, it's all about, knowing what your team's capable of and going to Elam. Sometimes, I'm not really sure if we can do that type of run until we're, 10 miles out of Elam. I'll say, okay, and then the time of day and stuff like that too. There's just a bunch of factors. Yeah, it just wasn't in the cards that year. But other years it has worked out for us. And I know it's a big move for other people too at times.
Brendan, you were gonna say something about his fastest run from he won the safety to Nome.
Yeah, I was just curious. I think it was 2020. I think you won fastest to Nome, and I was just curious if that was something that I know like some people are going for that. Is that something you were trying to do, or just kind of lucked out that way?
Yeah, no, I've never really gone for that. We've had some pretty good runs in from safety, but it wasn't on my radar. That 2020 race is the one I was talking about, where the year after I won and had a bunch of problems. And it seemed like right at the time where I had got the dog team back in order on the Yukon, I got sick out of Galena, and I, as sick as I've ever been in my life, from pretty much new auto all the way to the finish line. And so I ended up taking a bunch of extra rests just to kind of take care of myself. I think I stayed like 12 hours in Caltech. I was constantly going outside to puke and run to the bathroom, all throughout the night. And then I just ended up taking, stopped an old woman, stopped in Uniclete, stopped in Checkwood. So I had banked a fair amount of rest going up the coast, just trying to kind of take care of myself and stay somewhat hydrated, because it was real difficult to keep food and water down. That team was kind of perfectly set up for a fast run there at the end, but it definitely wasn't by design to be that way.
Jeez, that's every year we hear stories about like someone hurting themselves and sticking it out, or like you're talking about getting sick and just riding it all the way to Nome. Like that, it's crazy the things that the mushers will put themselves through to get there. And like, looking at 14 finishes out of 15 attempts, I'm just like, there's clearly a resolve with you that you just like, you don't find an excuse, I'm just kind of curious, like Sean and I have kind of talked about in other episodes, like Boozer's playbook of how you finish the race, right?
When he says like when you're thinking about scratching, like this is step 1 through 3. I don't remember what the steps are, Brendan. Maybe it's like,
I think it's like, all right, get to the checkpoint, get some food, take a nap, call someone you love, and like it's very basic, but like that. So I'm curious on from your perspective, like. What are some tips? Because I mean, here you are like talking about like having to use the bathroom and puke the whole time, and you're able to like still get to the finish line. That to me is crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess my competitiveness, tries to keep me going. Obviously, I think it's two different things when it's a musher issue versus a dog issue. I think there's some dog issues that are kind of out of your control, that, if your team gets sick or something, there's all you can do to kind of stay in the race. And sometimes it's just not in the cards. But if it's the musher getting sick, then, unless you need to get like medevaced out of there, just try to do what you can to keep going. And for me, it meant taking a little extra rest and try to stay in the game though. But yeah, that night in Caltech was pretty memorable. A lot of my races blend together, but that night in Caltech was one of the worst experiences ever. The checkpoint building itself, where we doesn't have a bathroom. It's down the road, probably 250 yards or more from the building where all the comms people work, and there's one single bathroom. And so throughout the duration of the night, which was 9 or 10 hours of laying in this building, it was all through the middle of the night. It's cold. 0. It was basically every time I lay down, I'd have to get up, put my boots back on, go outside, walk down the road, up the stairs into this building, and blow up the bathroom that all the volunteers were using. By the time I was done and had walked back down the road to the where we're sleeping, I would literally take my boots off and lay down, and you'd lay there for 5 minutes and my stomach would turn over again, and I have to walk all the way back down the road again. And that probably happened like 8 or 9 times throughout that night. It was insane. It was absolutely
memorable night. For all the wrong reasons.
And puking as I'm walking down the road to the bathroom. So yeah, and the crazy thing was it lasted like all the way to White Mountain. Richie gave me a full roll of toilet paper, like that old woman in my shack tour. I asked him if he had any more toilet paper. He's like, he used the whole roll. Nah, it was bad.
Oh my God. I've heard some horror stories about people with the runs on the trail, and that's one of the worst ones right there. I know we're gonna wrap up here. I don't know, Brendan, I'm sure you got a couple of closing questions. I guess I'll put in my last question here, which is like when it comes to like, obviously you have all these variables for these races, but like one of the constants is sleep deprivation, and like just like being and seeing the race from within this year. And like I was battling on like a very less than way, but I was, wasn't sleeping that much either. And then I like see you guys rolling in from the trail, and I got my 2-hour nap in and you didn't, or whatever. And you'll also been outside, my nap's inside or whatever. And so I'm just like blown away. Firstly, I was blown away watching it just to see like how brutal it looks when you're not doing it and you're watching people do it. You're like, Jesus Christ, like this is just insane. But yeah, you seem like whenever I saw you, like you maybe get up a little tired, of course, but like, how it's just like so tough to wake up after the nap and get your ticker going. And it's just, how do you deal with the sleep aspect? Or if it's like, it's a point where like you ran it 15 times and like the Iditarod's like not even really like that big of a deal, like
No, it's definitely a factor. And I actually have this weird thing where I have trouble sleeping on the race. I actually took melatonin this year, and I was taking melatonin on my 24-hour break just to try to actually get more solid sleep, which is the weirdest thing in the world. It's been super frustrating at times, but like, I'll be dead tired on the trail or, 4 a.m. or whatever. And then I get to a checkpoint and I lay down and I'm literally just like half awake the whole time. And I'll take like a 20-minute nap. And all my Iditarods, I've hardly ever had to set an alarm too, which is the weirdest thing. Like I'll set an alarm, but I always wake up before like 10, 20 minutes before it goes off. It's just like this weird something ingrained in me. But it's frustrating as hell because I feel like there's times where I could definitely be getting way more quality sleep. And I'm not able to do that, and then maybe you get out on the trail and you fall asleep on the runners or something. You should be awake. So that's been kind of hard to manage. But, I think in some ways it's a good thing because I'm able to operate on, not a ton of sleep. But, you get to those last couple of days of the race, especially when you're racing in the front. In the top 3 or anywhere through the win, it's brutal. It really wears down. You can see it affect different people differently. Yeah, Iditarod, you end up taking so many little short naps. It's ruined me on naps. When I was younger, I could actually take a nap, and now like I'm not really a big napper, but there's days where I go sit on the recliner and kick it back, and I'm like, I could nap for like an hour and a half, and I'll sleep for like 7 minutes and wake up, and like, okay, that's not going to work here. Because I'm just it's like if you do enough Iditarods and enough short naps and get used to that, for some reason you just kind of wake up refreshed after a short nap that really shouldn't be refreshing. So yeah, I have kind of a weird sleep thing on. I take every opportunity I can to lay down and rest my eyes, because even if I can't sleep, I think, just closing your eyes and taking that weight off your body is a good thing. So I'll take all those opportunities. But a lot of the times I'm laying there, I'm pretty much awake with my eyes closed. Yeah, like my 24-hour break, I'll get one good sleep in, and then the next time I try to sleep, I can't sleep, and I'll just make sure I lay there as long as I can and rest myself, but it's not as restful as if you're sleeping. So
When I,
That's easy.
yeah, that's brutal. You got, and that's something when you're in a competitive position in the race, it's like there's just I don't really know this firsthand, I guess, but like I have a lot on my plate just trying to finish and trying to like run just in front of the back of the pack. It's essentially what my goals were. And you still have a lot of shit. Like you're like, okay, I got to have this prepared and that packed and whatever. But you're like, all right, you're like shaving, 1 minute here and 1 minute there is a pretty big deal. It can be, or it's also maybe on the other hand, you're thinking, maybe if I don't stress about a minute here and a minute there, it might actually make the team better and us get there faster by not stressing. There's something to be said for that. But when I saw you like in Tulaksak, one of the Kusko years I was there, I remember seeing like your checkpoint routine there, which is probably like pretty unique. Like for that race, my understanding is like you start with dogs with really good body score, and you're like, just get them some snacks, get them eating a little something here, a little something there, but they don't need to have like an epic big meal because it's just 40 hours. So if you can just get them munching here and there is what my understanding is from a place of inexperience. So I see you lay down like a fish steak, a salmon steak, and you'd put it down like next to each dog. Doesn't matter if they eat it or not. They were mostly like just, we're ready for bed, but you just leave it there. And then, you might put a splash of kibble, dry kibble, go and run down the line, and then maybe like one other meat snack or something. And you'd be like, that it was like, these are the 3 items that each dog got. Like there's probably, I think like maybe the dogs can't reach each other's snacks in your setup maybe. Or they're just like so subdued and chill that they're not really going to go for someone else's snack. So you just come back and you know exactly who ate what, but like just you seem like you have like it's a requirement to be as successful as you've been, to have that routine be as efficient and quick, but also thorough. And like, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm just wanting to hear myself talk or if there's a question in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's been times where, I do for sure have a routine. Part of that wanting to just get the dogs dealt with and let them be left alone to rest, as soon as I can. And then allow myself, the most time I can get to go rest and eat and hydrate and all that good stuff. But there's definitely times where I've watched other mushers spend way more time with their dog teams. And I'm wondering, am I doing something wrong here or not? But, if all the issues that I know about are taken care of and they're fed and stuff, I don't want to waste any extra time, keeping the dogs awake or bothering them. And there's a lot of times too, just my movement around the sled or what I'm doing is kind of keeps them laying there with one eye open, wondering what we're doing. So if I can get out of there sooner than later, it just allows them more restful sleep. And so,
Yeah. It's fun to watch those y'all's routines up there. And Dallas, he always is getting the most efficient kind of, that's what Greg and Bruce are talking about a lot. But yeah, there's still all you guys up there have some pretty amazing routines to see, especially like in the Kusko where it's literally, there's always just a few minutes, it seems, between you and second place. Maybe you've had some bigger wins for sure, but it's just kind of interesting to watch, and there's like a million right ways to do it. But Brendan.
So I wanted to follow back up on the sleep deprivation thing. So, I'm just thinking of myself here. I've never been in, like a long crazy race or anything, but okay, if I want a nap during the day, I take a 20-minute nap. And that works for me, right? If I go over that 20 minutes mark and I don't get that full cycle, like when I wake up, it takes me like 2 hours to like shake it and like be like absolutely like dialed in. And it just, I don't know, it's probably not a question. It's just like a comment to that piece of just like, it yet again is another factor of the race of mushing in general that just absolutely amazes me that, like you're just operating on an hour and a half, you get up and like, bam, you're like right out ready to go. And I just know that for me, it would be like, man, I just know like in the morning, I'm sometimes if I don't sleep right, I'm like, I'm lost for several hours. So
Where am I?
and I'm not doing anything with dogs or on a sled or anything. So, yeah, there is no question there, but go ahead.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of being lost during the race. You're kind of just that's why having a routine is so important, because, when you get up, from a checkpoint 600 miles into the race and it's 4:30 in the morning and you're completely out of it, because there's definitely you wake up it's like that 3 a.m. to if I land at a checkpoint and I got to lay down at 2, 3 or 4 in the morning, and it has me waking up at 3, 4, 5, 6, anywhere in there. That's the worst time for kind of having brain fog and stuff as you wake up. But that's why having a routine, not just with the dogs, but with yourself, is helpful, because you can kind of be in zombie mode and know exactly still what you need to do. I have my same thermoses that I've used for years, and they all get filled with the same thing. And I got to grab this and I got to grab that. And you just kind of go through the motions as you get up, and then you kind of slowly wake up. But I always try to leave myself a little time to wake myself up, even if it means out on a little bit of sleep, because I don't like being rushed when I get up in those situations. So I try to always allow myself about 20 minutes that I can just kind of sit there and gather my thoughts, 15 to 20 minutes, grab a cup of coffee if it's available. And, if that just means sitting there in front of the barrel stove in Caltech and staring at the wall for 15 minutes and drinking coffee, then that, for me, that helps. If I, on the rare occasion where I do oversleep, you get rushed in those situations, that, I don't know, to me, it just feels full. I got to be able to kind of ease myself in with a little bit of 15 minutes of spacing out. So, but yeah, it's like, you're asking about the sleep deprivation and stuff, and I've thought about it a lot over the years. And actually, very few of the races that I've watched in person, I was more tired. Handles for handler I had in like 2018 on the middle of 300, and watching the race from the outside and handling and stuff in the middle of the night, I was like more tired than running the race. But I've thought about, I don't think what mushers do in Iditarod as far as their sleep schedule could ever be simulated in any other scenario. Like if you were to sit right where you're sitting in a warm room and copy exactly my sleep schedule throughout the race, sleep when I sleep and be awake when I'm awake, I don't think it's physically possible because of the environment that you're in. But because of the environment that we're in, I think it really heightens our alertness and our senses. And also you have the competitive aspect to it. So if you're more competitively driven, even if you're in the back of the pack, you might be traveling with somebody that they're getting up to go. So now I want to get up to go. So there's motivating factors in what helps keep us awake and keeps us going. And then of course the responsibility that you have taking care of the dog. So there's a bunch of these motivating factors that I think help keep us moving, even though we're like total, sleep deprived state. But I really don't think you would have to be in a situation, I think, where your life was in danger, I think, to copy what we're doing. If you were just in any other normal situation trying to copy our sleep schedule, it'd be impossible. You'd fall asleep and that'd be it.
Yeah, I've heard it compared. I mean, we had some military guys in the race this year. It'd be interesting to hear their experience being in the military and being on some probably crazy missions. We hope to talk to Josh Robinson and Jeff Reed at some point, but that there's probably some similarities between like a week-long Navy SEAL mission where you're maybe not sleeping at all, and just at least some of the chemicals released in your brain in that setting, your life, that doesn't feel like your life is at risk probably out there at this point. Maybe when you do it your first time, you might feel that way, but
But you might be in a situation where it's, you're on the trail camping and it's 55, 60 below and you literally have to move around to stay warm. I can't just lay in my sleeping bag and, comfortably sleep because I'm going to freeze. So you gotta get up and jump around, and just that right there kind of, helps keep you awake. But I've always
survival kind of situation. Yeah.
Real interesting to see, some outfit do a study on mushers during one of the races and kind of see the effects of the sleep deprivation. And I don't know how they would do that, but I'm pretty convinced there's a certain level of brain trauma that goes on doing a bunch of Iditarods in a row and subjecting yourself to that kind of sleep deprivation. My dad actually told me that before I ran my first Iditarod, he said when he was a kid, there was a radio broadcaster that was going to broadcast over the air many hours as he possibly could without sleeping. And I don't remember exactly how many days he went. It was probably like maybe 3 or 4 or something without sleeping. And he ended up with permanent brain damage from that experiment.
Jeez.
Damn.
So yeah, I think it's
so like how are you doing? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, no, that's when you're factoring in how many more years you're gonna do this, So no, I feel okay, but I mean that week after the race I definitely required more naps. So but yeah, it would be interesting to see some real scientific studies done on it because there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of sorting out and different things going on in your head that you're not used to.
Yeah, the emotional aspect kicks in too. Yeah. Brennan?
Well, I was just going to add to that one on that same note. Like I've always been, it seems as if most mushers just are like eating whatever. There's not like I'm like, what are you eating? They're like a bunch of candy bars, a bunch of pizza. And I've always been like, okay, you put your body through this crazy, test that's 10 days ish, whatever. And then you're having all that sleep deprivation and then you're not like really eating well. And I've always been like, I wonder if mushers got that dialed in, if that would be a big like difference or game changer for them,
Yeah, I think there are some that, are more dialed in on that than others. But for me, my appetite is not the same during the race under the, in the situation we're in, sleep deprivation and stress. So my appetite changes dramatically. And things that I normally would eat, or even things that I think would probably be the best things to eat during the race, aren't appetizing to me anymore, and can actually, make me actually feel not that great. It's like, well, just because of the stress load that I'm under, stuff like that. So I've just found, the things that I will eat on the trail and that I like to eat, and yeah, they might not be the best things, but I don't eat a lot of candy and I don't eat a lot of sugary crap. And, my caffeine intake is limited to coffee. I try not to drink too much coffee, when it's available, I'll grab some or whatnot. But I eat a lot of burritos because they're handy, and mainly.
I had one of your burritos, by the way. Delicious.
Yeah, they're pretty simple, just cheese, sausage, egg, and potato. I can eat those pretty much the whole way. And, if I stay consistent with what I'm eating, it kind of keeps my whole digestive system in order too. So I don't have a large variety of things I eat on the trail. It's pretty much the last 15 years, probably eating more burritos. But it's simple and it works. And, I can eat them without getting out a plate and a fork and a spoon and stuff like that. And I never would seem to get tired of it. Well, that's what works for me. But yeah, there's other people that are eating candy bars and there are other people that are way more high tech with it. I think Matt Hall this year showed me some concoction that he had where it was like a powder pack or something that he was pouring in his thermos that had like 7 gazillion calories or something. So, there's definitely other ways to do it and other more efficient ways to get the calories in. But for me, it just kind of comes down to what my appetite will allow me to eat.
Burritos,
Right.
baby.
You can put anything in a tortilla. It's true.
Yep.
Well, Brennan, any final thoughts here? You good?
I mean, I always have more questions,
Yeah.
but I think we're at a good like stopping point. And you know, again, want to be respectful of your time, Pete. But yeah, no, Sean and Pete, I think this has been a great episode. And you know, a lot of times, Pete, we'll like give you an opportunity to, I don't know, like if there's
For the millions of listeners to hear.
all the people that want to like, you know, check in on you. I don't know if you want to mention anything, ways to support you, or just anything going on that you might want to share with some of your fans.
I guess I don't have extra stuff. Just like what you guys are doing here, and you know, seems like you're spreading the word, mushing with what you're doing, and I think that's neat, and that's why why I was interested in coming on here and hanging out with you guys. So appreciate the opportunity to share a bit about myself and about you guys as well. And yeah, thanks.
Dude, thank you for your time, and this is really cool. It was fun getting to see you out on the trail this year. You know, I've always seen you around over the last several years, but yeah, it was cool to get a couple words in with you, and yeah, you're a cool guy, and we're glad we got to hang out for a little bit virtually, and hopefully I'll see you around before the mushing season. But if not, you know how it goes. You see all your best friends in the mushing world once a year or whatever. It seems.
Maybe I'll see you playing guitar in a bar in Anchorage again.
Yeah, that did happen. Yeah, maybe.